Creating a new strategy for Instagram can be a difficult thing to do, especially if you don't know where to start. The algorithm is constantly changing on Instagram and it's hard to know what works and what doesn't. But in today's video, I'm going to go through my 2025 Instagram strategy and talk about some proven methods that I've actually tried and tested before. And hopefully, if you want to create a new strategy for Instagram in 2025 too, some of these tips that I'll talk about today will help you out. But for those of you who are new to this channel, hi, my name is Kaylee and I'm a beauty and fashion photographer based near Sydney, Australia. But I'm also a content creator and I started this channel a few years ago to talk about all things business, social media, freelancing, and content creation. And as I mentioned in today's video, I'll be exposing my strategy for Instagram in 2025, and we'll be talking about some of the things that I'll be doing differently in 2025 compared to 2024. So I like to change up my Instagram strategy most years because I do find that it's impossible to do the same thing over and over again with these algorithms. They do change so often, as I mentioned before in this video, and I think we always have this new information coming out and tools that we can use to really alter our content or to alter the way that we're at least posting it. And one thing in particular that I've been using to kind of help guide my strategy for 2025 is actually a study that Metrical came out with a couple of months ago. Now, if you haven't heard of Metrical, I've spoken about them a lot on my channel before, and they are an all-in-one social media scheduling and analytics platform. So I typically use Metrical to schedule a lot of my posts and also kind of track my analytics through there as well, especially for Instagram. And as I mentioned a few months ago, back in September, I believe they released a new study for Instagram. It's quite in-depth and it really goes into different trends and what is really happening with the Instagram algorithm or what the trends have been over the last year or so. I actually found it really fascinating to look at as a content creator, and I think that if any of you are a little bit confused at how the algorithm is currently working, which I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of people because I get confused on a monthly basis, it's always changing. So I think that it's really good to see an overall viewpoint of this study and really see in depth at what is kind of going on with the platform. So I have left a link to the study in my description box below, so you can go and check it out there. And if you are sort of struggling to come up with a new strategy for Instagram, this is another tool that can really help you out and guide you. But I will talk about certain elements of that study in this video today, and it has influenced a little bit of what I'm doing in 2025 to kind of change things up a bit and really adapt my content or my ways of posting my content to kind of what the trends are indicating. So jumping straight into my 2025 strategy, the first thing I'll be really sticking to is posting at least 3 times a week. Now, the reason I'm deciding to post like a minimum of 3 times a week is I feel like that's a really good starting point, and I don't want to overcommit with my posting like I have done in the past and really find that it's a struggle to keep it up if I've got a lot of other content that I'm having to produce, which is often the case at the moment. I'm doing quite a bit of YouTube videos week to week. I have sponsored content I need to finish. I'm also a photographer and I do that side of my business too. There's also retouching clients I have, and it's really hard to juggle it all. So I need to make sure I'm sticking to something that obviously fits in with my lifestyle and something that I can ultimately stick to. But the other reason I am choosing to post around 3 times a week is because in the study that I was reading by Metrical, it virtually confirmed what I had always thought about Instagram's algorithm and what I had been noticing over the past couple of years. And that is that the trend for overall reach really doesn't pertain to whether you are posting daily or whether you're posting a lot more than around 3 to 4 times a week. So if you are new to this channel, I did post a video late last year where I spoke about my 6-month experiment of posting reels daily to Instagram. And like I said, I did this over a period of 6 months to really see what would happen with my reach and my growth overall of my Instagram account. And I obviously did see some growth and I saw a uptick in my follower count. However, there were times during this experiment, and I did mention this in the video, where things tended to flatline. And without genuine like engagement and really going to other people in my niche and commenting on their work and really having a little bit more of a community building exercise within that, I felt that things were tending to flatline regardless of whether I was posting daily or not. Another thing I did notice is after I stopped posting daily and I was posting, say, about 4 times a week, I was still seeing the same kind of rate of growth as when I was posting daily. So I think it was at that point that I realized that, okay, daily content is not going to be necessary all the time to post on Instagram, and the study did confirm that. It essentially mentioned that posting daily was not really going to change your overall growth pattern, and still posting around 3 to 4 times a week is probably still going to be very beneficial for you. It really did talk a little bit more about quality over quantity, and potentially that is how things are moving with Instagram. Now, again, for those of you who don't watch my channel, I have spoken about this before a few times in different videos, but one thing I've really been sticking to over the last couple of years with with trying to build that account up. And even with this YouTube channel, to be honest, has been more of a quantity of content. I've been just really focusing on getting as much content out and sort of churning it out as much as I can. And I did that to sort of create a bit of a backlog with my Instagram account, but also with my YouTube channels as well, to sort of know if people are going to like land on my YouTube channel or my Instagram account, there's at least a backlog of content that they can go and look at. It's sometimes not as great if you only have a couple of posts on your account and you've been posting really intermittently and people don't tend to stay there for very long. So I do think that's an important factor of building the quantity up of your content and making sure you do have enough on there if people do visit your page. But at the same time, I think to continuously keep it going forever is probably not the best strategy. There's a point that you get to where you need to refine your work, refine your content, and just kind of focus more on the quality element. Having said that, although I'm working to about a minimum of 3 posts a week, and that could be pretty much anything from reels to carousels to just standalone posts, I do feel that posts are going to be less of what I'll be posting essentially, so just individual posts, which I will talk about a little bit more in this video and why I'm feeling that way. But overall, I think it's going to be a mix of carousels and reels mainly. And again, having said that though, I do think that there'll be times throughout the year where I might want to do a bit more daily content for Instagram if I have the time. And I think that that sort of just kind of helps boost your presence on Instagram every now and then to do that, even if you're not doing it for a long extended period of time, maybe even 2 weeks at a time here and there, I think is okay. And I'm just going to work to that for now and give myself that flexibility. Now, the next part of my strategy is really going to be to focus on aesthetics. And I have spoken about this in my other 2025 strategy for social media video, and you can watch that down in the description box below. I'm going to link that. I have spoken about focusing on aesthetics a little bit more because again, the last few years, particularly with Instagram, I haven't been as focused with aesthetics as I have been with just the quantity of the content that I've produced. A lot of it has been produced in phone, in my app, my Instagram app, and I haven't really thought too much about curating my content a little bit more and just refining it. And that's what I want to be focusing on in 2025. I want people to stop scrolling when they see my content. And I really want it to be too good almost to look away. I think there has been a little bit of a step back from aesthetics in recent years, whereas Instagram was very well known for that and having kind of very nicely curated feeds. But ever since Reels came into the equation, things have sort of dropped back with the aesthetics as much. But the more I've been present on Instagram, the more I've realized that I need something to help me stand out. Instagram is flooded with travel content creators, and there's no doubt about that. And I do think that if I just consistently do the same sort of content and I don't tend to improve my content at all or the look of it, I don't think it's going to be very show-stopping for a lot of people. And not every piece of content needs to be show-stopping, I will say that, but it is a focus that I want to have more of in 2025, just to help me stand out that little bit more. The next part of my strategy will be to focus on carousel posts as well as reels. Now, for those of you who are unaware of what carousel posts are, that is the type of post that you can choose on Instagram where you have several images or several videos in one post, kind of like a mini gallery. Now, again, in reading this metrical study, it was really interesting because again, it confirms something that I had been thinking was the case for the last few years of being on Instagram, and that is that carousels are king for engagement. This has been the case for a while, and they really beat even reels at engagement. And I think that that's really interesting. So I will be focusing on that more and more because I think especially when it comes to building that community environment on Instagram, which I think is lacking a lot of the time for a lot of creators, and it's really lovely to have that community environment. And one of the ways you're going to be able to do that is to get more engagement on your posts, so then you can engage back. And of course, as I mentioned, with carousels being really the best way to get engagement or the best form of posting for engagement, it's something that I do want to focus on more for 2025. And reels have also been confirmed as the way to get the best reach on Instagram. This was another thing that the study mentioned. So again, that's confirmed my thoughts. I always figured that to do Instagram, you've really got to have reels as well. This has just become a very known factor, I think, in the last couple of years since they've arrived on Instagram, and it definitely confirmed what I thought. Reels have the best opportunity to give you reach. So if you are struggling to reach a new audience on Instagram, this is going to be the key way to do it, is by posting reels. So I definitely will be focusing on both of these post types. However, I'm not going to forget about stories as well, just here while we're mentioning post types, because stories are actually incredibly important too. And another another thing that the study did mention is that stories are actually really key for brand deals and brand collaborations. It's also a really good way to start engaging more with your audience, and you can do that by different ways that I will mention in this video, but brands really prefer the format of stories for sponsored posts. And it's really interesting reading about this as well. It's almost like a FOMO thing for a lot of people to click on stories because they only last a short amount of time of 24 hours. People are scared they're gonna miss something. So a lot of the time you will get those clicks, and specifically for brands, they've found, I think, better conversion rates through stories. And this is just basically compared to potential reels or other posts. So I think stories play a part in this as well. And I do wanna be a little bit more creative with my stories too. The next step in my strategy is going to be to focus on engagement. And this was actually part of my strategy for the past year as well. During 2024 was to focus on engagement. And that means not only replying to all of my comments that I'm receiving on Instagram, but also going to other people in my niche and really trying to build community with them, commenting on their posts and kind of cheering each other on. I think that's a really nice thing to aim for on Instagram. Too often, I think with short form content these days, things get glazed over, creators get glazed over, and people are not sticking around for very long. And I think the nice thing about building a bit more community and kind of staying in contact with people in your niche is that you feel like social media actually becomes social again. So not only is engagement great for making connections and building community, it can also be really great for brand collaborations down the track too. This is because they can see people are a lot more active on your posts. And if they're seeing that your community is active on Instagram, that's a really good metric to go by for a lot of brand deals and collaborations. So just generally creating engaging content and being engaging is something that I really want to aim for. And like I said, this could come along with my stories and how I'm going to pivot with kind of doing them a little bit differently. You can do things to help get people engaged more, like using interaction stickers. And that's something that I hope to do a little bit more of in 2025. The next part in my strategy is posting at around 8 p.m. So the other really fascinating thing about this study that was done on Instagram through Metricool was the fact that one thing stood out with the posting time, and it really confirmed that no matter what time zone you're in, 8 p.m. is generally the most ideal time to post. I was tending to post a little bit later on, like sometimes 11 p.m., like around my bedtime, or even later than that, depending on what day it was or what time I was actually going to bed. And I think that that was maybe a little bit too late, especially because a portion of my audience is also from New Zealand and Australia. So I do find that obviously a lot of people are going to be going to bed at that time, and unless it's like a weekend or a Friday night, they may have missed the content altogether until the next day. Now, even though a lot of my audience is also from overseas, it's still kind of not the most ideal time probably for me to post. So I'll be kind of shifting that back to 8 p.m. to see if that really makes a difference. And seemingly from this study, it is indicating that 8 p.m. is the best time. And the way that they've kind of calculated everything, it's so interesting that 8 p.m. across the world, no matter what time zone you're in, is the ideal time to post. It's funny how they've gotten that in-depth knowledge about this particular posting time. So 8 p.m. is it for me, and that's when I'll be trying to post. Now, the next part of my strategy is going to be creating shareable and savable content. So the Instagram CEO has confirmed that shares are a really key metric for growth on Instagram. Again, this was something that I had suspected for a long time, was that the posts I was creating that had more saves and more shares tended to be the ones that took off more on Instagram, particularly with Reels. And I do think that that is something to really think about when you're creating your content, is really finding what is going to be shareable or savable. You know, doing aesthetic Reels is all well and good, and I've done a lot of them in 2024. I think maybe too many. I've focused on that a lot, and now I kind of want to move away from that just a little bit into more valuable content. But I think that's the key word, is valuable. What is going to be valuable for someone to want to share it to someone else or to other people or to their feed or to save it for later? You know, thinking of more educational type content or content that is going to be really valuable to your audience is going to be kind of that pivot you need to make with your content if you want to really grow a little bit more with those metrics. As I said, I've definitely noticed that saves and shares in particular have propelled my content in the past, so that is going to be part of my strategy for 2025. The next step in the strategy is going to be focusing on quality over quantity. Now, I've already briefly mentioned this in this video so far, but one of the reasons I really want to be focusing on quality is because, as I've mentioned before, I'm going to be posting a little bit less now. So I want those posts to have that little bit more of a valuable or aesthetically pleasing look. And especially because I have that time now, since I'm reeling back a little bit with those posts, I want to be able to put that into the quality of my posts instead. Things are changing slowly on Instagram, and I think we're also moving moving back from the heavily quantity driven accounts on Instagram and really moving back to some of that more slow content, that more curated content. So I really do want to focus on that more in 2025 because I think for too long already I've now focused on quantity, and that was really what the algorithm was favoring, I think, at times. But now as things are changing, I think we're going to shift it back to quality a little bit. And then the last part of my strategy for Instagram in 2025 is going to be analyzing my posts. Although I do tend to look at my statistics for Instagram fairly regularly, I wouldn't say that I'm analyzing the posts enough. I don't think I've been realistically looking at what people actually want to see on my Instagram account and what has done well in the past. I haven't really analyzed it to that extent, and that is something that I really need to start doing more of. And again, in 2025, I'll be utilizing Metrical to help me analyze all of my posts on Instagram. And the great thing about Metrical is I'm getting a lot of statistics over there that I simply cannot get from Instagram itself. If you've gone into the Instagram analytics before, a lot of it is very brief. It doesn't really give you super huge insight into your demographics, and it doesn't give you your engagement rate. And especially even for individual posts, Metrical is wonderful this way because I can really go in there and find out pretty in-depth information about each post that I am creating. And that's really wonderful for me, especially the part where I can look at my engagement rate, because as I've mentioned on my channel before, it's really important to know your engagement rate overall, but also for individual posts, so that when you do eventually have brand collabs or brand deals, this is a really key metric for them to see how active your audience is, to see how engaged they are. And it's really a good metric for you to see what's working and what's not on your own Instagram account. So I'll absolutely be using Metrical for this again in 2025. And I think that it's just great that it gives you that in-depth look into your analytics. And then you can really tweak your strategy as you go along to see what's working and what's not. Well, I hope you really enjoyed this video today, and hopefully some of these points that I've talked about today for my strategy in 2025, maybe you'll be able to take some of these points and apply it to your own strategy. But let me know in the comment section what your plan is for Instagram in 2025 and what you're going to be doing differently, or if you're going to be doing anything differently at all. I really love hearing everyone's thoughts on this because it's so interesting to see for every different niche out there what people are really aiming towards and how things are going to change in the new year as well. But if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, make sure you do, because I'll be posting a lot more videos like this one in 2025. Also, make sure to hit the notification bell to see all the updates from my channel. But thank you so much as always for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.